I was just I was just thinking of, like I say, like you are participating in this as a leader, church leader who's been in this field of shaping people's soul. Formation of soul is very dear to you, and that's what you are
Yes.
all about. So, but as you are participating in 77 Day, can you just share with us what you find it maybe unique or different from all the other, in a sense, system of shaping or helping people to form to Christ likeness?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously there's the integration between the hemispheres, right and left brain, so we're talking about a holistic approach to neuro faith based
Mm.
spiritual formation, which I know not a lot of uh, pastoral practitioners are probably aware of, even, or certainly there are, some may be aware, but others may not be confident in. And
Mm.
I think for me personally, um, because our ministry is so, we made the switch about 15 years ago from a programmatic attractional form to a more discipleship missional oriented approach, which put us into small groups and spiritual families that we call house churches. And when discipleship got in the core of everything, then all of a sudden we started to care about uh, people's experiences with that, and their transformation became more important to us. So when we went through about a decade of trial and error with that, and we started to see in our experience how we were bumping up against an inability to see people transform from one life stage to another life stage, and all of that became very tactile for us. That wasn't theoretical. It was like, that's what we are experiencing. We're moving from childish emotional states, relational states, and we're hitting the wall. We need more elevated, more mature abilities to relate to one another. That threw us into the neurofaith life model world,
Yes.
where the question is always asked, how does the human brain actually transform?
Mm.
I care about that question because I care about discipleship.
Yes.
You understand? So it's like, because I care about discipleship, I care about that question. So for me, it's a lot less about these neuro faith ideas being new, innovative, new forms, whatever. It's less about that, and it's more about like what works, what is going to work. And
Yeah.
so, very, very intrigued by Jim Wilder's work with Dallas Willard. Of course, everyone really loves and appreciates Dallas Willard from his the Great Omission work, his view of the kingdom, all of this. Well, when someone like Dallas Willard begins to lean on begins to hint that we need more help from the world that you guys are offering, it got my attention.
Mm.
So that put us in about 5 years of, life model works. We practice manual journaling, becoming more aware of our attachment styles and how that impacts relationship with God, self, and others. We, through COVID, decided to just basically say, hey, our work with discipleship has worked to a degree. But once we began to look at it through an attachment-based paradigm, and I found no help. I found no help there. Like, that was a much more innovative and intuitive response for us. I was like, there doesn't seem to be a book or a resource available to me as a pastor that I'm aware of that helps me practice, that helps me like take an attachment informed paradigm of discipleship or relationship with God and apply that to spiritual formation.
Wow.
I didn't see that. I saw a lot of theory, but I didn't see a lot of practice.
Huh.
And so at that point, we were very used to being bad at things until we were good at it. in the innovation. We had already sold the farm, 10 years prior, and we were like, if we're going to trade the attractional form for a more disciple making missional form, we don't really know how to do that. So we're going to be publicly bad at that until we're good at that.
Wow.
And so we had already been on a long journey of humility.
Wow.
Gosh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love the sentence though. I'm quite drawn to it. Your boldness and gutsiness and the courage of knowing that you'll be bad at that until you be good at that. Something Enneagram 1 really resonated with
Yeah.
me. Because
Oh
I
yeah.
don't want to be bad at that.
Oh
I'm not
no.
gonna move until I'm good at that. But you being 3, I love it. So I just kind of pause and just kind of let my soul receive it as a gift. Because like, wow, publicly almost one point you own that. I know they will be bad at that until we.
Yeah. Well, it was incredibly humbling for me. Again, like you just said, Enneagram 3. I am an Enneagram 3. And so I love to be competent at things, and I love to be seen as competent at things. But I also have a pretty strong wing 4, which says if it's not authentic, and if we aren't being authentic and congruent, I don't want it, And so I have enough of that to kind of go into the deep rabbit hole and chase down the thing that's most authentic. And so that means relationships too, And so what I began to experience in my work with predominantly next generation, like millennial folks, was and I'm getting someplace to kind of and I hear you, Sungshin. You're asking about the 77-day journey, so we're getting there. Yeah, we're getting there.
Yes. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and I love that I saw a quote that that you know who Terry Real is, and he is famous for saying that for many years in his practice, these young married couples would come into his practice and they would need communication skills because they were in communication crises. He would teach them communication skills, and then that would get them nowhere because in the heat of the moment they would just weaponize the skills against each other. We in the disciple making world, we had basically gone to skills. So like, this is how to pray, this is how to make disciples, this is how to live on mission. And what we found was that people weren't really bearing fruit in any of those categories because we weren't aware that we needed to pay attention to the story in the iceberg of their life. And so we actually have a whole operating system now that we use as a church that, we used to have a little up in and out square. I mean, an up in and out triangle. Well, now that sits like a little mountain peak on top of an entire iceberg. And we tell people that's like a lot of our work now is to get subterranean into your iceberg to help you understand that your attachment relationships with God, with other people, with the world is deeply informed by your story, your history. And the gospel is inviting Jesus onto that map of your history and saying, walk this map with me, Jesus, and reparent all of the parts of me that are lost and hurting and broken so that I can live the life that you are said I could live in the kingdom of God. I can be fully alive, like reparent me, but that's reparent my past, And so I haven't found much, there's just not a lot of resource for this work. We've just had to kind of innovate our own way, and we have done this. We've innovated certain ways to get now, like our entire leadership structure goes through a 2-year process into their story to basically live an attachment informed life with God, And so my experience now with the 77-day journey and some things that it's helping me kind of put in place is just the notion that the Trinity is our first family. Sung, Shane, come on, John, like this has been such a gift to me. And it's like, yeah, of course, duh, how do you miss it? Like, how did we not know this all along? But just to know from an attachment paradigm, so, safe, seen, soothed,
Mm.
that is what the Trinity is for us. They work together to provide an atmosphere we could be safe, seen, and soothed with God the Father. What is the gospel? The gospel is Jesus has done everything to make it possible. Jesus has done everything that we could not do for ourselves so that we could have a secure relationship with God the Father. That's the purest essence of the gospel itself.
Mm.
Jesus has made a way for us to have, again, a secure relationship with God the Father where we can experience being safe, seen, and soothed in our original family, being reparented in that way. So what you guys are doing in the 77-day journey, is that what we're calling it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, journey or challenge, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Yes.
I want to get that right.
Yeah.
What's happening there is your amazing ability to take therapeutic paradigms and your experience there, and to help people in very essential ways get in touch with what is happening in their body, and to be kind there, but not without help there, and to cooperate, with the meditations, with that original family, to see people return to states of joy. And the whole I love the little app. I love the app. I love the way the app is set up. I love the way that it keeps people involved. I love the way that it kind of compels you to come back to it. But more than that, there's a community there that we're all like, why can't church be this way? Wouldn't it be great if church itself could be like this? And it can be, and I think it will be and needs to be, but the neurofaith paradigms need to be less. I don't know what stigma there is on that. Like, as soon as you start talking about it, people are like, what are you talking about? That's weird to me. That must be progressive. It's like, no, this is just what science is doing to tell us what Jesus has always been doing. And science is finding names to tell us what the beauty of who Jesus is and what he's been doing all along. And you guys are giving us ways to touch it. And you guys are innovating in a space that's allowing me to see how I can distill it down into practice, into the people's lives of the people that I pastor. And I'm doing that, and it's happening, and joy is skyrocketing like crazy. That was a long walk around the barn, guys. Like, that was all the way around the barn to tell you everything that's been going on and why I appreciate it. But there you go. So
awesome.
That's wonderful. I think it's whoever is accessing it as a pastor, I am sure they will relate and appreciate and maybe even find hope and encouragement.
Yes.
And obviously we didn't set out to bring this kind of experience, but I think my heart just began with my marital struggle. Like, I think that was a place of discipleship for me, and I want to live out the gospel in that context, parenting and marriage, and I utterly failed. Like what you said, that you were doing the church discipleship, like the more the traditional sense, but you are not anyway traditional. It's not the building church that way anyway. But to me, how God sees my relational domain, especially intimate domain, marriage and parenting, and whenever I see myself utterly failing, like you said, I'm so bad at it, and I really wanted to bring the kingdom in that very place. And otherwise, to say authentic number 4, I cannot stand anywhere and talk about God's power and transformation. How could if I didn't taste that, how could I say that?
Yeah.
That was a real spiritual crisis to me. And then that was 2001. And then since then, the journey between me and Jon, the spirituality, as well as this like neuroscience and even trauma resolution and my personal practice with clients. And I just get to a place of one point. It's not about knowledge, even though in our 77, I, like you say, distill the knowledge, all these domains that I combine it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I realize so I just want you to maybe make a comment on this one area. I did it, this is my third time, because you think that since we created it, we are not going to do it. But I listen to it. I engage in the wall of work as a participant. Not so there's a dual. Like I really refrain myself from telling them what to do, but really noticing what's happening. But what I find it this third time more than first and second is that again, storytelling, the template that's given from one another. So let's say, Jon, I even like your template many times. Whenever you were just sharing your experience, how you interact with God in real time situation, and then you write down either as a win or as a prayer request. I see that, oh, this time when it is like that, this is how I can reach out to people. Oh, this time how God show up like that. So when I see that in yours and the many other people who are doing it, that's where my right brain, according to Jim Wilder, fourth level of right brain identity, they are looking for the template. What does it look like for me to act like Jesus's follower? It doesn't mean
Yes.
I'm always choosing the right answer. When I fail, what do I do? Or when I'm confused, what do I do? Like all of us looking for this template of what the family of origin, those Trinity, what would have they done? And of course, we kind of know the Bible answer, but then when I'm in a real situation with fighting with my kids or husband or the coworker, all that dysregulated state, what am I doing? And then this group of people together, I don't know exactly, but this is what I did, and then they share. And then when I read it, something in my body like relaxes and like, oh, I'm not sure. That's not exactly what the Bible said. It's not written in the Bible, but my soul resonates. Oh, this brings me sense of relief or this sense of hope and encouragement. And then I just kind of, then my neurons like get excited and then they get wired together and like, oh, I'm going to do it next time like that. Like me, as somebody who developed this, but then seeing the community aspect, the weak and the strong, sometimes the weak show up as a strong too, because that day that person was so really intimately interacting with God. So they share some stories that are so like life-giving. And there are days that I show up as a strong. So the weak and the strong interact together, but then it's not stagnant. Someday I'm weak. Someday somebody who they see as a weak but show up as strong and really lift me up. So I just want to hear your thought about your involvement in the sharing in the wall as a pastor, because you're so used to probably just showing up as a leader, always just guiding them. What was it like for you so far?
I think that has been a real gift to me. And in fact, I think I even commented on somewhere in the app within the last couple of days that the community has become I mean, obviously these are not people that I know. I have never had any experience with any of them. I don't know if even any of them even live in Kansas City, and I don't know that I'll ever be in the same room with any of them at all. But I can tell you that being in this space where just something as simple as like sharing wins, and the wins many times are, I remember, I think I even posted last night, like got got to go to Olive Garden with my daughter and my wife. My daughter's never been to Olive Garden. It was a joy to see her face light up when she ate a breadstick, which is just something so simple. But to see people experience that, like, oh my gosh, what a simple moment for you that was significant, that was so human, such a human experience. And obviously I've been able to post other things that are more vulnerable and things that are bigger, very much bigger than that for me in my life. And it's always the same response. People are there to champion you, to just see it with you. I don't know. It's not rocket science. It's just like somebody being like, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
amazing. That's such a gift to you today. That's even just a little high five, like just to know that a couple people high fived it, it's just like so cool. And I think for me, because I was on a sabbatical this summer, and being away on sabbatical, there's a much bigger story related to this. I just got in touch after I sort of my heart thawed out for about a month and a half. I suddenly began to realize how hyper vigilant I had become, because I live in we all are trying to communicate in a very reactive world right now. So anyone who is a communicator is experiencing a lot of feedback that's not always positive, And so I just realized, like, my gosh, man, my body is just kind of on, And I remember coming back home and saying to Alyssa, like, I have serious questions about how healthy this vocation, pastoral work, is right now. Very serious concerns with how possible it is to be a pastor, be human, be whole, and to survive this scenario, because the world is so reactive right now. So if you have even shades of enmeshment or codependency tendencies, you just got to watch out. You got to be aware, And so I think that things like the 77-day challenge are providing people like me a place to go, to be seen, to be accepted, to be received, to know that, like, I can share a thing and it's not necessarily associated with my platform or name, and people aren't going to freak out. They're not going to throw something back at me. You know what I mean? Like that I'm going to be met with joy, kindness, gentleness, curiosity, and
a safe place to like share some of those things.
Yeah, it's a safe place to be.
Yes.
With people who are like on the same journey of wanting that. And then we get to see like, oh wow, like we have no idea how, whatever level of competency these people are, but enough, and that we are more alike in our tender, vulnerable spots. And we get like, oh, okay, then if that person can do it, I can share too, or I can share that part of me that's like that as well. And so it sounds like that. You want to say something?
Yeah, because I think when you say it, probably we will segment this part for the pastors and missionary. This cohort, or we both had the reason that we raised money for the pastors and missionary to do this thing was I really felt that struggle as pastors go through, missionaries. So we are always in the place of giving and standing tall, even when we are bleeding inside. And then who's caring for those? Like you say, for vigilant. That's absolutely right. And we need to have those people, the pastors or missionaries, those who are kind of spiritual communicator in the society. They need a safe space where they can be just seen as just one of child of God. I think
that's right.
So I love that you mentioned about it, because I think that again ignite our desire to make this platform available for only. I have a dream that only pastors and missionaries together, like, and then they on another level of safety. And it doesn't mean that we are all on the same page, though. I get it, but then there is no screen of like, there are somebody who are lay people who will hear my pastor's struggle, right? But then when we are all together with the pastors and the missionaries and then their marriages, and that's something that John and I desire to create, and maybe have that group of people who go through it together. Yeah.
Well, I do believe that you are creating that space right now. I really do. And it is going to take, it is going to take a bit for, I think, even pastors, clergy professionals, It's going to take a bit for them to kind of learn what they can trust, you know. And for what it's worth, you guys have provided a platform that has proven very trustworthy to me personally. And I would highly recommend and suggest that other pastoral friends consider what you guys are offering to people who are in vocations like I am in right now, and would just say, hey, you may have your questions and you may be wondering if you could or should do this. And I would just say, just do it. Just do this with these beautiful guides that God is giving us. Yeah.
That's our desire, because, you know, like out of like the leader's marriage flows to their kids, flows to their leadership team. Like that's like the sequence of how God meets us: personal, marriage, family, leadership, and beyond. So
yeah, that's true. Can I speak to that real quick? And can I give just a personal testimony of like just one way that's something that's changing in my own life that's very practical. You guys do this beautiful, you know, the whole idea is not a preference of left or right brain, but it's an integration, a whole brain, you know, life. And you guys do a really good job of saying, hey, these are right-brained realities, and these are I mean, right brain realities and left brain realities, and the nonverbal right brain day in Coach's Corner, where we began to talk about the importance of body language, facial
expression.
Yeah, facial expressions, tone of voice. When we started to talk about tone of voice, things really began to change in my world, you know. That was a very, very practical thing for me to consider in my own life. In my marriage, it named a thing that I think that God had been trying to maybe bring to my attention. You know, it doesn't matter what I say, it matters how I say it, you know, to my children. It's the felt experience that's going to be remembered by them. And yeah, that my life changed that day.
Wow.
You know, my life very practically changed that day. And it also kind of has me, you know, from, you know, even here in our home, my relationship with my wife, Alyssa, like our date nights, they just sound different, you know. My relationship with my kids and what I say to them and my rapport with them, I'm just aware and I'm just mindful of it. And I've even been thinking about it in my sermons and in my talk. It's like my tone of voice. It doesn't matter if what I'm saying is true, if my tone is weird, you know, like my tone is probably the thing that's giving me away. And so
you are.
What's that, John?
No, I was saying so beautiful. And then I'm just thinking it's not like you didn't know tone of voice was important, but your openness, the context of learning, and like a sort of like the safe enough place to like, oh, I'm learning how to grow myself. And then like it's somehow you and the spirit connected about that, and it struck you, because tone of voice is something I'm sure you know is important, but somehow in this context, in set up in that teaching way,
yes,
that's I think the beauty, putting ourselves in a quality learning environment.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly right. And I want to thank you guys for that, because it was a huge, huge gift for me. And I do think, John, you're right. It was the exact, it was just the way that it unfolded that gave me a deeper insight into what was going on.
Yeah. What's my observation of it, John, is you are a humble man. I would say that's what it comes to my mind. Like, right, John, you're correct too. Everybody knows as a communicator, tone of voice really matters. We all know that. It's not you didn't know, but I think you are seeking and you are turning to God. And if I remember that right brain communication teaching. This is something that coming from my personal experience. And I am reminded at this moment, God again saying it, I can only give, meaning as a communicator or teacher or discipleship person, if we don't get to embody what we are teaching, it doesn't land it anywhere.
Right.
Like I think the tone of voice thing, that's something I had to work on 20 years. And then that
Yes.
after 3 years of my therapy experience, at the end of my last therapy, the therapist saying, Sungshin, there's some sort of feedback saying in my tone of voice was really hard for her to listen to.
Yeah.
So she was the one who was trained to listen to people, be paid by that. And then when somebody says like that, when
Yes.
John was constantly reminding me of my tone of voice, but I didn't get it because something in me justify. It's just John who's weak who cannot handle my strength. That's what I thought. But when the therapist said that, I'm thinking, oh my God, that should be her job. And she's saying they was hard. And then
Yeah.
when Holy Spirit was convicting me, I really need to pay attention to my tone of voice. So it took me that many, many years, but for you, why I say it's a humble and it was your fruit with co-laboring with God, co-creating that peace in your tone of voice with God, according to 77 day that the language you co-created with God. Like, because I think it took me a long time. If you testify that, oh, after that session, I was able to bring changes, and I'm like, I'm honestly blown away. Like, whoa, you could do that so fast. That means probably God has been convicting it all this year.
Oh yeah. Oh
all
yes.
this
Oh
year.
yes.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh well,
continual.
it named a pain point. It named a pain point, and so Alyssa and I got into the 77 day journey because one of the things that we did when we were on sabbaticals, we kind of like we looked at the major categories of our life, like spiritual direction, marital help, counseling, my own personal therapeutic needs, and then also like body stuff, like fitness, nutrition, and rather than going, there's one guide out there that's going to get me, that's going to lead me in all these categories. We started to just go, where do we need to invest time, money, and resource in these categories in our life that will demand a coach? Like because each one of these categories are high profile enough that we're going to need a coach. So we started to ask, where could we find some help in some of our communication stuff. We have a flow in our marriage. We have a pretty good flow, but we've also been through some hard things over the last couple of years, and we just needed to check. The tone of voice thing was kind of something that was a concern for me.
I want to say something because like when you're in this dialogue and you're this idea popped in my mind, so I just pay attention from God, the Spirit. This is for all of us, not just you. It's like, oh, this tone of voice can be in felt sense pointing back to like a part of us or like the nervous system where we are. So it's like a part, it's like, oh, so we can pay attention to that part that wanted to, whatever. It's probably the tone of voice is a little more forceful. That's what people that love us react to.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, let me backtrack and bring care and attention to that with Jesus. Like, oh,
Yes.
what's going on inside of me? Because you want to change the tone of voice to have a different relationship with your wife and your kids, but then you can have a different relationship with that part of you that is represented in the tone of voice.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. It all added up to being a huge help to us. That was right at the right time. And and there have been so many other things too. I mean, I could literally go on, guys. I could go on and on and on. The attachment question. The attachment questions. I think it was, will you be there for me even if I don't believe like you yet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
And I've got a 14-year-old in my house, you know what I mean? That is strong. And I catastrophize his future all the time.
You know what I mean? Like my validation to parents is like any good parent is gonna like have moments of like that kind of worry and concern, or they're just
Yeah.
cut off. They're like, just figure your life out, or it's like, no, oh my gosh, like you have this means you're gonna end up this place when you're 30. Whatever that
Right. Oh my gosh. All I see is jail for you. That's all I see. That plus a couple other things. It's
yeah, I know,
jail, man.
which
You
is
know?
most likely not the case, but it for sure it feels very, very
Yeah.
real.
Feels that way. Yes. Yes.
Woo! Well,
And so just to kind of have that question, you know, which made room in my heart to be like, oh man, like, is it okay? Am I going to be here for you even if you don't believe like me yet? Yes, that means I can be here for you right now without fear. Like,
right.
I can show up as a really strong dad,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know, like a really strong dad. And you guys are you're giving me the kind of help I need right now, you know? And so,
I am so grateful to hear all this. I think this was very rich, and yeah, this
John,
is
thank you
so
so much. And
you.
may
Wow.
your marriage, your parenting, and then the people you love in your community be blessed, you know, really
thank you.
be multiplied.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
multiply.
Well, I